It's Thursday, and joining us for Worldview with Denis Campbell is Denis Campbell. He's editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine, also, of course, author of the new ebook Magic Underwear in the Situation Room, Mormon Mitt's Weird Faith versus GOP Sexism, Racism, and Lies. Denis, we had Paul Ryan selected as Mitt Romney's vice presidential running mate recently. I'm curious, what's the reaction in Europe? How does Europe and the UK see a guy like Paul Ryan? Religious, obsessed with Ayn Rand, although he never really said that. He loves Rage Against the Machine, although Rage Against the Machine doesn't really like him. What's the perception of him?
Well, it's very interesting. You know, Ayn Rand, listen, Paul Ryan presents a very interesting set of dilemmas because what he does, and in preparation for this segment, we were supposed to have done this last week, but of course the Julian Assange thing took over. I talked to a number of political editors, people with whom I've had dealings with over the years, and almost the consensus opinion is that Paul Ryan, I can't seem to get the two of them disconnected in my head. Paul Ryan seems to represent an ideology that competes with the general ideology within the States, and certainly within any ideology you'd find here. And for example, one of my conversations with Adrian Masters, he's the political director of ITV, and he was talking about the fact that this guy is so ideological that most people here in the UK and the EU can't even get their arms around some of the things that he's been talking about. When we understand the concept of shrinking government, we understand the concept of austerity, but to propose getting rid of Medicare, welfare, they're so different to the sensibilities of people here in the UK and the EU.
Okay, but now talk about that for a second, because there's some conservatives here in the US, they like to troll our YouTube channel and liberal message boards, etc., who say this idea that everything in the UK is just so liberal and great. There's the Tory party, and the Tory party, some conservatives in the US like to say, are not that different from some of these right-wing Republicans. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. While that may be true when it comes to fiscal issues, the social conservatism taken to the extreme among the American right, that's not the same in the Tory party, is it?
Well, absolutely not, at least at this point. There was an article yesterday in The Guardian that did seem to give an indication that some of the very highly conservative, what would be considered the right-wingers in the Tory party, are beginning to feel as though they now have the ability to advance an agenda. The problem is that in general, the Tory party is not very strong. They only won the election 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, excuse me, by 8 votes, 8 seats. So the minority was required, the majority was required because they managed to convince the Liberal Democrats to come into government with them. So that gave them that cushion that they needed to be able to actually govern. But the problem is now you've taken a far left Liberal party with the Liberal Democrats and a far right party with the Tories, and they're kind of a natural counterpoint to each other. If the Tory party goes too far, they lose the Liberal Democrats and they lose the ability to govern. There's been a lot of friction and fissures in that relationship over the last couple of years, and it's really coming to a head now. Right now, everybody's out on summer recess, but they'll be back in about 3 weeks towards mid-September, and we'll begin to see all of the issues that have been placed on the back burner, the Rupert Murdoch thing, the press freedoms, all of the issues related to cuts to the National Health Service, etc., coming back into the forefront of our thoughts as the summer holidays end.
Okay, so give us a little bit more in the last minute or so we have here. What other opinions are there? What's the reaction to Paul Ryan?
Well, Paul Ryan is unknown, as was Mitt Romney before the prism of the gaffes that we saw when he came to London. You know, we tend to see the prism of Republicans as being non-ideological. So the stark differences that we see now between left and right, and taking issues such as abortion and making them the #1 issue out there in the contest, it's all very new here. And I think that's part of the reason why some of the far right on the Tories seem to think that they can also get away with trying some of the same things here, but they're not likely to get very far. It's almost as if the entire Republican Party has jumped the shark, and Paul Ryan's selection, I tell you, I can't get the two of them separated in my own mind, so I don't know where we're going to go. Paul Ryan represents the significant jumping of that shark because all we've read about him is that he is so ideological, and that's anathema to what we are used to dealing with here in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, the way, as Todd Aiken said, if Paul Ryan isn't a legitimate candidate, then the body will just shut the whole thing down. It still remains to be seen, whether that actually happens.
Kind of scary, actually.
All right, we've been speaking with Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. The new ebook, which we'll get into more detail next week, Magic Underwear in the Situation Room, Mormon Myths, Weird Faith versus GOP Sexism, Racism, and Lies. Great stuff as always, Denis.
Thank you. See you next week.
Okay, stay tuned. We'll be back with plenty more after this.